Hello guys, and I want to start this video quoting President Zelensky, who is a legitimate, respected leader of the brave European nation that right now stands against this global evil. So Zelensky asked, why would Ukraine agree now to Russia's ultimatums if we rejected them in the darkest, toughest times? After 3 years of Russia's full-scale invasion, unprovoked war against Ukraine, we have learned a lot and we have achieved a lot. We've destroyed a big part of their weapons, armored vehicles, tanks and aircraft. Most importantly, we have ruined the backbone of the Russian army and the Black Sea Fleet. Ukrainian drones travel unstoppable all around Russia, and North Korean soldiers that they had to order to back up Kursk failed, and we control Kursk region of the Russian Federation. So why on earth should we agree to Russia's ultimatums? And I do feel bad about the negotiations that took place today in Saudi Arabia. By the way, what a choice of allocation, not in Europe, not in the US, not in Australia, but in Saudi Arabia. And I hope that these things discussed behind the Ukraine's back will not turn into a knife into Ukraine's back. It is difficult for me to hold my emotions, but I've made a list of things we need to discuss without any emotions so that you feel why it's absurd to negotiate and appease Putin right now, when Russia is the weakest ever. My name is Anna, I'm from Ukraine, I'm in Ukraine, and if you want to see the defeat and demilitarization of Russia, which is actually the only working peace plan, subscribe. We discuss all of that on the channel. I will need to react to this Rubio-Lavrov pact that was discussed in Saudi Arabia, but after I will provide the context. For those people who follow the updates from the Russian war in Ukraine, it is quite obvious that Russia needs a tactical pause. They have run out of people. They are afraid to start this open conscription in Russia because it will end Putin's regime. We have destroyed a lot of their arsenals and they started buying cheap and bad North Korean missiles that do not always work. They do not have air defense to protect Russia. That is why we keep destroying their oil refineries that are vital for their collapsing economy, and this turned into a serious problem for Russia. Together with sanctions that I am very much worried can be lifted sometime soon, Russia is on its knees. Putin has a lot of troubles inside his society, and honestly, with like half a year of this war, Russia is defeated. But we have some very wrong things happening which can actually save Putin and thus prolong this war and actually enlarge it to the global size. According to the reports coming from the front lines, Russia's offensive on Zaporizhia and part of Donetsk region is failing. The number of their attacks dropped dramatically. But they keep saying they need Zaporizhia and Kherson regions, which are not occupied by their troops, inside Russia as a part of the potential peace deal. This is insane because honestly, right now, everything that is discussed, everything that is leaked is a fully Putin's plan. And I do feel bad about the US embassy opening in Moscow. Because why? What has changed? Did Russia took all of its troops out of Ukraine? Was Russia punished for all the war crimes, stealing Ukrainian children, killing thousands? What's the reason? You may say to soften up Putin before the negotiations. This is a negotiation strategy, and I will tell you no. This is what the world wants you to think. We have this good country that stands for its independence and protects its borders, and we humiliate its president, its people. We say, it's not worth talking with them until the big boys decide. And what is worse, one of these big boys is the greatest war criminal of the 21st century. It is Putin. And so far, it feels like this lead in all the negotiations is from Russia. The United States tried to reach Putin. The United States promised all the good things that can happen to Russia if it stops, starting from lifted sanctions, saying that both parties need to make some concessions. I am sorry, please do not forget it was Ukraine that was invaded by Russia, and it was Russia that violated all the international order and demonstrated a very vivid example to countries around the world that if you're strong, if you have nuclear weapons, you can actually attack all of your neighbors and get their territories. Russians failed to take Ukraine militarily, and now we feel pressure, and this pressure is not coming from Russia, it's coming from our allies, which is very surprising, if I can use this word. Subscribe to demonstrate your solidarity with Ukraine, and please share these videos on your social media platforms because this works. No matter what is the plan, no matter what is the greatest negotiation strategy, even though I am convinced that business and politics are a little bit different things. What we see right now, and once again, correct me if I'm wrong, because some people who disagree with my vision of peace negotiations will say that I'm angry or too emotional. Please watch it. No, I'm saying the things that are already known. Russian hostilities continue. Russia attacked Kyiv yesterday. I heard the work of air defense when I was going to bed. At the same time, the delegations of the United States and Russia are talking about Ukraine without Ukraine. So what was the reason for these negotiations if actually nothing stopped and Ukraine is out? Most importantly, not just Ukraine, but also European Union. This is the dream of Putin, negotiations where Ukraine and the European Union are absent from the negotiation table. As some of you beautifully commented, if you are not at the table, you are on the menu. And that is how it feels. After these years of Ukrainian resilience and great Ukrainian military success, because Russia is super weak and it cannot protect itself. And we give the platform, we give the limelight to Lavrov, who says, well, we never threatened the world with nukes. Didn't you see that? Well, we never attacked Ukraine and its energy infrastructure for the civilians. Didn't you see lots of my videos that I recorded in darkness? And can you imagine how we feel at this moment in Ukraine with all of this BS at the so-called negotiation table? And all, once again, in the context that the number of Russian assaults on the front line is falling. They don't have soldiers, so they have to order them from North Korea. Drones travel unstoppable. And they lack money. They desperately lack money, so that they use this like shadow budget, forced loans from banks to fuel Russian military budget. And knowing all that, in this context, what we hear is that Ukraine has to agree on Russia's terms because the United States wants a ceasefire. And you know what? Some of these trolls or really bad people, they come in comments and they tell me, well, you don't want peace. Let's be realistic. It's not peace. It's not peace. Please do not name surrendering of a country, capitulation of a country, peace. According to this logics, we should have invited Putin to Kyiv in February 2022, and that's it. That's the plan. That is the plan, because it looks exactly like that. But after witnessing the strength and resilience of Ukrainian people, all the evil coming of the Kremlin, all these war crimes, someone can offer us that? We will not accept that. And, you know, I cannot, like, once again, get how did we get into this moment in history when our allies, some of our allies, say that Zelensky is illegitimate and Putin is legitimate. Ukraine is illegitimate from Putin's perspective. He will say that tomorrow. Will they repeat it? We had so many, like we had more presidents in Ukraine during these years of independence that they did in Belarus and Russia together. Is there any plan to hold elections in Russia? Because we all know there were none during the last 20 years. Why aren't you talking about that? How do I feel here in Ukraine about that? Do you know, by the way, they did not hold elections during the Second World War in Britain? So should we say that Churchill was illegitimate to sign the peace deal? And you know, some people say, but they did hold them in the United States because you did not have this open bombings and total destructions as we did in Europe in the Second World War and as we do now in Ukraine. I know how many people in the United States opposed potential forge of elections because of mailing ballots. And here in Ukraine, with lots of things destroyed and constant danger, it is okay. And nobody's asking Ukrainian people. And okay, forget about that. But the thing is, Putin is legitimate. We are not, and Putin is legitimate. What is wrong with this planet? And in this context, they plan to open US embassy in Moscow. It's not a peace deal. It's a capitulation. But fortunately, we are strong and we will not accept that. I hope that there are many countries and there are many people around the world who understand why it is so important to stop Russia, because trust me, I'm Ukrainian. I did not believe it was possible, this full-scale war, if he is like prized with Ukrainian territories, with no Ukrainian NATO, and sanctions are lifted, and I don't know what else should our super negotiations do to satisfy Putin, excluding Ukraine, excluding European Union. That's cool. That is so cool. The enemy is now all these like countries that want to defend their sovereignty and independence and simply do not give up to dictators, causing some trouble and noise. This is how I feel at this moment in time, but it will pass, because you know what? Democracy is forever. Ukraine is forever. And all these very shallow-minded politicians, they are very, very temporary, especially taking into account their age. And this was the moment when I got emotional. So let's skip it, and please join me on Instagram, X, Threads, Discord, and share my videos if you agree with me. Be careful of scammers. I never invite you to chat privately. Support our campaign for Ukraine AIDS operations. That is the best way to achieve lasting peace in Ukraine, to back up Ukrainian armed forces. Thank you for buying me coffees, becoming my patrons and sponsors of the channel, and most importantly, thank you for standing united against this evil that is coming from the Kremlin. Slava Ukraini!